During this October, there will be eclipses happening in the sign of Taurus as well as in Libra. This is the acceleration of our soul's path. What happens on our soul's path? This is a blueprint that we are downloading during this season to know what the next steps in our soul's evolution is. This will include relationships and our value systems. Happy eclipse season. This is Minister Ashley for FD 1111 Ministries. You make sure that you do check out all of our platforms, as well as my new book, now listed on Amazon. 5-star rating. Go check it out. Link in bio or either link in description. So with this eclipse season, this is ushering in much change. Change in both finances, in values, as well as change in relationships. So with this transformation that is happening in these two departments of our lives, that we're going to see a lot of uprooting before we can see the manifestations of the seeds that we're going to plant. This intel will give us a gauge of our emotional intelligence. With this data that we will receive, this will let us know where our maturity levels are on our spiritual journey. Libra is ruled by the tarot card, the Justice card. And what is Libra season all about? It's about relationships. It's about equilibrium. What is equilibrium? So I'm going to refer to my notes to break down this word. Equal, equa is equal. Lib is liberation, but also Libra. Technically, it translates as Libra, which means scales. Like we are weighing out the pros and cons of this emotional evolution that we're going through. And Librium is weight. So altogether, we are weighing out what this will cost us on this emotional evolutional journey. What are the sacrifices that we're willing to offer up? So with sacrifices and offering, I mentioned in a previous video about the esoteric meaning of Yom Kippur, where that required a sacrifice, an offering, in order to go through this next level of abundance, next level of wisdom, of knowledge, of all the things that we need to have a healthy and productive life, that we have to give up an offering. You can check that video out, and there you will gain some understanding of the path of the sun. And so with the path of the sun, that is our consciousness on another level. And as we go through these different portals, that we receive different layers of understanding of our life situations. The scales, we have our spiritual and our emotional self, and we have the physical requirements. What are we willing to offer up in exchange for the lifestyle, in exchange for our soul's path, in exchange for the relationships that we desire? Referring to the eclipse, one that is happening in the sign of Taurus. So Taurus is represented by a calf, a goat, along those same lines. And this is directly in correlation to the Yom Kippur portal, where there was an offering to receive some favor. So these offerings are mostly symbolic. You can have some historical ties, but this is symbolic of the law of exchange. What are we willing to lay down? What are we willing to give up to receive the blessing? So with the scales, it's like an even exchange. If you have too much on one side, the other side is off balance. So in order to have equilibrium, which is the homeostasis in our body, but also the homeostasis between our spirit and our physical. So to have the physical manifestation, you have to offer something up energetically. So this could be more time, more devotion in your spiritual practice to gain understanding and direct instructions on how to manifest something in your life. This also could be laying down something in your diet, offering up something from your diet that could be a hindrance anyway, that could be blocking your growth, both on a health level, a financial level, a knowledge level, something that you have to offer to level up. Libra is represented by a biblical figure known as Deborah or Deborah. I did a full video breaking down who she is historically, esoterically, as well as in the Bible, and how she was such a prominent leader and figure. And here we have this represented by not only the Justice card, but also the Queen of Wands. And with that, that's that fiery energy. Part of her character is that of fire. So if we know what fire represents, it represents prophecy, it represents purification. So through a purification process, it requires burning away the impurities This is all symbolic of the things that we have to do to purify, to raise our consciousness, and to obtain the knowledge and the know-how on how to manifest certain things and relationships in our life. Venus is the ruler of both of these eclipses, being the ruler of Taurus and the ruler of Libra. The two expressions of these energies of these houses may manifest differently, where we can obtain equilibrium in our finances, in the things that we grow, that we produce. We can see this with food, our relationship with food, our ideology surrounding food, in our value system, and the things that we find valuable. On the flip side, the equilibrium that happens within our relationships. Are we overgiving, or are we taking advantage of other people? That we can find this equilibrium in our relationships. This can manifest on both ends of the spectrum if we are being more intentional, and if we are taking advantage of this Venusian energy. Found to be interesting that the last part of the word equilibrium, the imium, the IUM, is related to iron, gold, and chemistry. So chemistry is can be related to the chemistry in our body, the chemistry in our brains, that we can find in a lot of these precious metals are also found in our bodies. So this is independent study, through regulating these chemicals, regulating the precious metals in our bodies, that we're able to obtain some level of homeostasis, that we can find perfect peace within our bodies through our minds and the gut-brain axis. You can do some additional studying and research on that. So moving on to these eclipses, where we have the eclipse in Taurus, and we also have another eclipse in the sign of Libra. I definitely feel like this is going to be a time of deep cathartic release for a lot of people, especially with these eclipses. Here with the first eclipse that happens at 21 degrees of Libra, which is in the second decan of Libra, and that is ruled by the Three of Swords. The Three of Swords is like sorrow. It's like something that has pierced our heart, pierced us to the heart, some type of heartbreak, something that will lead to a better circumstance if we do not wallow in that sorrow. Now, we all have to have moments where we grieve, and this is the moment to allow that grief to happen. If you have been holding on to something in your emotional body that shows up in your auric field, that you have to take this moment to release it. And it's okay. It's okay to have moments where you may feel weak, where you may feel like you're unfulfilled. Allow that to happen so you can welcome in completeness. Lunar eclipses can affect us up to 6 months, while solar eclipses last a little longer, up to 12 to 15 months. This is definitely being confirmed in the astros, being that this eclipse happens near the South Node. And the South Node is all about release, deep release. And Mercury is also paired with this eclipse. And Mercury is the planet of communication. So for many of us that may have experienced some form of trauma or drama in our lives, that we have not voiced that, this is a good opportunity to voice, even just to yourself, to your family member, to a trusted friend. But you don't have to necessarily voice it to somebody else. You can journal it and allow that to pour out onto that paper. Allow yourself to put a voice to that pain. This eclipse will bring more harmony over a period of time, but you have to allow yourself to take advantage of this energy, of this opportunity. By the way, this eclipse happens on October 14th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So referring back to the 21 degrees, that Sabian symbol is a crowd on a beach, surrendering self-importance. So through this trauma that we all have experienced, some level of trauma in our lives, that's a part of life, that regardless of what your situation is, that there is someone that you can connect to. You don't have to find that person now, but through your healing process, you will find ways of how to relate to others in their trauma, but that trauma that can be transmuted to joy, love, and happiness. We don't have to stay in that trauma. We don't have to stay in that vibration. We can find ways of how to transmute that, because this is a part of life. Trauma does happen to us, but we do not have to stay in that resonance. we can find ways of how to connect to others, ways of how to heal. And this eclipse is definitely a portal of healing. This eclipse happens next to the star 𝐵𝒃, and 𝐵𝒃 is about, she's represented by a staff of grain. She's holding grain. And this could be our struggle with food. It could be someone that may struggle with food. They may have a battle with food. Food may rule their life. It may be destroying their life. And this is a call for us to take notice of our diet. This also could be food shortages, grocery stores, price increases, different things to deal with grain and with food and with agriculture. So many people have an identity crisis. Their identity is based on their possessions. And through this lunation, many people will have the realization that they are more valuable than what their possessions are. Their relationships are more valuable than what they possess in their bank account, what title they possess, or what labels the value that they put onto labels. Gucci, Prada, all those different labels. And labels are logos, and logos it translates as God in Greek. So people are idolizing these labels, and they are willing to sacrifice their personal identity by placing more value on externals instead of internally. What is going on with this lunation? And this lunation at this degree is ruled by, which is in Scorpio, and that is ruled by the 5 of Cups, more sorrow. Some people may feel that have not done the internal work. They may feel like they have an identity crisis. They may be feeling like, okay, who I thought I was or who I thought I built myself up to be was actually a fraud. They will have to really seriously ask themselves some questions about who they are and who they want to continue to be. So if you are feeling like something is out of whack, something is off kilter, off balance within yourself, and you have been fighting it, you have been covering it up, that this is the time to really take a close examination at your value systems and who you want to continue to be. So we are in the beginning of the Aquarian age, that we have to take steps back before we can move forward. There's so many false identities that we have layered onto ourselves from childhood. We have to break through those so that way we can own who we are. We can take back our soul's contract. We can take back our soul's identity to be able to live to the highest expression that we incarnated to be. So during this season, take advantage of these low points, and the low points are what we have covered up, like the base level of us, our true soul's essence. So take these opportunities to really do some soul searching. During the season, we can find ways of how to escape the matrix. My personal opinion is that we never will be able to fully escape this matrix. I feel like it's almost like the Maze Runner effect. If you ever watch that series where they find their way through one maze and then the next the sequel of the movie, which life is like a movie, is that we find ourselves in another matrix. So heaven, hell, or these different paradoxical realities, or another form of matrix. But the way how we can escape the overall, matrix in our lives, like if we're stuck in a mundane relationship or we're not producing the fruit that we want to in our lives, that's a form of a matrix, that we can find a way of how to escape that through this equilibrium portal, where we can find that homeostasis, that sweet spot. Go and check out my new book, listed in the bio or either in the description. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. Remember, this is not the time for manifestation, it's the time for de-infestation. Eclipse also happens on a Saturday. So Saturday is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is a dark energy. It rules darkness, it rules melanin, it rules anything that's like consistent of darkness. So with this darkness, what can fester in the darkness is things like mold and bacteria and things that we don't want the light of day to see, that we don't want people to see. But the thing about with mold and bacteria, that mold and bacteria can heal as well. So the things that this whole message is about, things that were once held us back, things that we were once ashamed of, that we wanted to hide from the world, that we didn't want the light of day to see, that by bringing it to the light, then not only can we heal it, but we also can use it as a medicine, as a salve that will heal us. If you did see that video about the esoteric meaning of Yom Kippur, where you have like, this happens around the equinox, where you have the equal parts light and dark, that represents duality, that represents what happens within us. We have our dark side, we have our light side, we have our subconscious, we have our conscious. So as that happens on that equinox, the sun starts to die, it starts to fall. And with that represents us going within ourselves. We go from Libra, then we go into Scorpio. With that being said, that the next eclipse happens in Scorpio season, and it happens at 5 degrees of Scorpio. And that Sabian symbol of the 5th degree of Scorpio is releasing stability. We go from equilibrium, or what we thought was equality, what we thought we were cool with, to being unbalanced.